There are reasons why certain experiences feel bigger than the body. There are reasons why certain moments through meditation, music, creativity, intimacy, and even deep pleasure can feel extremely electric, intensely emotional, and even sometimes supernatural. What people don't realize is when they're experiencing these moments, there is an actual name for what they are touching. In Tantra and yogic philosophy, it's called Kundalini energy. Now, before you get overwhelmed by the term and think that it's something that only extremely advanced spiritualists understand, I want to break this down in a very practical way. Many people hear Kundalini and think of people dressed all in white, maybe shaking somewhere on the floor in some type of advanced ritual. But the reality is, Kundalini energy exists and is alive in every person every single day. And we experience it through things like creativity, different emotions, intimacy, intuition, transformation, healing, and pleasure. Even parts of yourself that you've been suppressing. And when you understand how to work with this energy consciously, you will stop disconnecting from your body and you'll be a lot more intentional about your healing, pleasure, and your relationships. So, what is Kundalini? Traditionally, Kundalini is known as the dormant energy that lies at the base of the spine. In Tantric and Yogic tradition, it is represented by the coiled serpent, not because it's evil or dangerous, but because it represents the primal life force energy that is awaiting to awaken in each person. And when this energy consciously starts to awaken and move through the body, it has the power to transform you greatly, spiritually, emotionally, sexually, creatively. Now, here's the important part. Kundalini is not separate from your humanity. In fact, there's a metaphysical and physical component to Kundalini itself that involves the hormones in your nervous system and also your spirituality and your mental and emotional capacity. Many people approach spirituality from a place of trying to escape the body, but Tantra teaches us something different. It teaches us that the body is actually a doorway to spirituality. Your breath, your emotions, your sensuality, your nervous system, your pleasure, and your awareness are all pathways to deeper consciousness. So when I talk about embodiment practices like emotional release, nervous system regulation, breath work, sensual movement, what I'm really talking about is how to connect to and direct your own life force energy consciously. And that's why these practices can be so transformative. So, how do people experience Kundalini? Not everybody experiences Kundalini in an extremely dramatic way, nor does Kundalini have to be experienced in one way. I personally have experienced Kundalini, on shrooms, doing really deep rituals and having visions. But you also can experience Kundalini in your day to day life. Like it can feel like a tingling coming up your spine. It can feel like a throbbing sensation in your private areas. It can feel like a spark of creativity, a deeper awareness, more sensitive to energies around you. It can feel like an aha moment. It can also feel like this instant desire to want to change your life. And yes, oftentimes this energy is paired with sexual energy and feels like sexual energy. However, sexual energy is just creative life force energy. And this is why, in a lot of your spiritual sciences, a lot of your teachers will encourage people to cultivate, direct consciously, or conserve their sexual energy or creative life force, because when used consciously and properly, it can be extremely powerful in transforming your life and also healing you. So, this also means that when you are experiencing sexual energy as pleasure and not just a spiritual, creative life force energy, you can unintentionally tap into healing when you are moving through pleasure with awareness. It's also why people can have spontaneous experiences with Kundalini when they're experiencing very intentional pleasure, and they're very self-aware. So you could experience Kundalini unintentionally through listening to music, when you're making love, when you're being creative or making art. All of these kind of everyday, explorative, and very sometimes mundane, humane experiences, even things like dance, grief, heartbreak, um, being connected with nature, especially if you're an athlete and you're outside all the time. All of those are opportunities for Kundalini experiences, not always awakenings, sometimes awakenings and experiences, sometimes an activation, but it's all Kundalini energy. One thing all these things have in common, from experiencing love to grief to pleasure and orgasm and dance and meditation, is that they're experiences that crack you open emotionally and energetically. And so, what I've learned through my embodiment work is that the body remembers everything. It remembers conditioning, suppressed desires, fears, creativity, pleasure, all sorts of pain, emotional pain, heartache, physical pain. If you've gone through any medical traumas, the body remembers it. And when you consciously start to reconnect with the body, you don't just awaken pleasure, you also simultaneously awaken awareness. This is why I'm always talking about practices like sensual movement and tantric yoga and self-pleasure rituals, because when you start reconnecting with the body and feeling again, everything resurfaces and your intuition becomes clearer, your creativity starts to expand, and then your confidence becomes stronger or changes, and desires become a lot more clear, which is important when you're trying to create your own reality. And that's when the work around pleasure, sexuality, and sensuality actually become healing. Now, I want to say something important, because I feel like social media can romanticize spiritual awakenings. Kundalini is not about chasing intensity. In fact, it would be dangerous and dysregulating to people's emotions and nervous system to chase an experience that's so intense when their body is not grounded or ready for it. I believe that spiritual spiritual growth is not just about ascension, it's about being more grounded, more embodied, more emotionally honest, and just in general more integrated with all areas of your life and aspects of self. So the safest path to experiencing Kundalini is through conscious, slow embodiment, not through escapism or spiritual bypass, and definitely not by forcing. So I really believe the safest path to having Kundalini experiences is through slow, conscious, embodied connection, especially not through escapism, which happens a lot in the spiritual community through taking ayahuasca all the time or really promoting mushrooms. There's nothing wrong with those things, but sometimes people forget that the body needs to be fully integrated in order for any real transformation to happen. So in order to have healthy Kundalini experiences, the body has to be taught how to hold more energy, more awareness, more truth, because a dysregulated body or nervous system is going to struggle with being able to handle expanded states of consciousness regularly or often. So healing is not separate from awakening, and grounding is not separate from spiritual ascension. The body is an important part of the process when it comes to healing and expanding your consciousness. They work together. So if you've heard everything that I've said and you're wondering, how do I start working with this energy? Kundalini is something that I feel like calls you from within. So getting more in touch with nature, more in touch with your body through mind-body practices like yoga, tai chi, intuitive dance, things that allow you to flow with your more intuitive, creative self, things that allow you to tap into deeper intimacy with yourself. That's why self-pleasure rituals with intention and awareness can be extremely powerful, but also things like meditation and journaling. Things that inspire you from a deeper place, your soul's purpose, even being open to love and the experiences and the emotions that it triggers and brings up. is something that can lead you naturally towards an organic path of experiencing Kundalini. And then also, you have teachers like myself that teach tantric yoga that allow you to get in touch with your body through embodiment practices and rituals that can guide you towards being more aware of understanding what's going on with your energetic body, learning about the chakra system and how the metaphysical and the physical energies that exist inside of you and outside of you work together to create your reality. Reading about things that feed your soul and spirit. These are all ways to start to explore this energy. But I do think it's something that happens almost like an initiation into a different phase of adulthood. There comes a point in your life, a lot of times, where there's a fork in the road and you decide if you want to continue down a path that you've been going, or if something, a whisper, a pattern, maybe some numbers that you keep seeing are calling you to look a little bit deeper. And that's really how it usually begins. It can also happen with going on a retreat and exploring, cannabis or mushrooms or plant medicine. But I think it's really important as far as an organic path to just get in touch with your body. And Kundalini, as you explore yourself, you you will eventually not have a choice to run into that energy, literally just kind of run into it from within. It comes from this desire to have a more intimate relationship with yourself and to understand yourself outside of just what you've been taught and wanting to go on your own hero's journey. In closing, I would like to say about Kundalini in this conversation around Kundalini is that oftentimes in the spiritual community, there's this idea that you have to abandon yourself, your wants and desires, your urges in your body in order to ascend or awaken. And I think the opposite is true. Like this idea that you have to escape from humanity or who you are will make you some type of supernatural being. But that's a misunderstanding. I think the more that you can connect with your emotions, the more that you can connect with your body, the more you can understand your nervous system, the more you can understand how your humanity connects with the beauty of living and existing and being fully present, the more you can explore the deeper meanings of life. And Kundalini is the creative life force, primal life force that exists in all of us because it's the intelligence of creation ever since it began, ever since existence. It's the reason why we have time, because it's about rebirth and death. And so how that shows up in your body on an everyday basis and combined with the wisdom of Kundalini is more about being fully present in your lived experience, and Kundalini assisting you as you're on your path, evolving as a spirit with a human body, and what humanity and being fully human can teach you as a soul. So if you would like to explore these types of teachings more, especially when it comes to your own personal experiences, I have an intensive coming up June 27th, and we'll continue to explore this on Patreon.